Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. We broadcast 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time, right here on Genesis Communications Network, GCN Live, LIVE.com. And, Jason's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. Today is a special broadcast, and I'm broadcasting with a dear friend, Sharon, in Montana. And we're going to be talking about the Prepared Pantry and what you need to do right now, in my opinion, because the supply chain is broken. It's difficult to get some supplies that you need for your survival. And the urgency of today's broadcast is evident to me because I saw a press conference on the internet yesterday. And we're hoping to have Jason. I sent Jason a link, but he's having trouble opening this particular link to play it for you. It's 2 minutes long. 1 minute with a man by the name of Mike Freeman, Freeman. He's the county attorney for Hennepin County in Minnesota, the county where the cop Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd. And so he's a prosecutor. In addition to him being on this audio, there is a woman by the name of Erica McDonald, and she's the U.S. attorney for the District of Minnesota. So they each spent about 1 minute, and we'd like to play it for you, and we're going to try to. But I'm going to give you the upshot of this. The two prosecutors have not determined if there is evidence supporting a criminal charge in the case of the murder of George Floyd. The government attorneys who would prosecute this case against the police officer who murdered George Floyd don't know if a crime has been committed. I kid you not. I'm going to read some headlines in lieu of the report for right now, and that is, quote, and this is dailymail.co.uk, quote, prosecutors warn there is evidence that does not support criminal charge in the case of 4 cops accused of killing George Floyd. Mike Freeman, county attorney for Hennepin County, condemned the actions of white cop Derek Chauvin as horrific and terrible. But he added that there was other evidence that does not support a criminal charge. Prosecutors must decide if the cop used force deemed excessive when he knelt on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes until he passed out and later died. I'm going to reread that sentence. This is all a quote. Prosecutors must decide if the cop used force deemed excessive when he knelt on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes until he passed out and later died. That is what is being said by the attorneys who would be prosecuting this case. They don't know if a crime has been committed. They don't know if a crime has been committed because the police, in their policy manual, says that they can do these kinds of things. They can do these kinds of things to people. Now, we would consider that if we knelt on somebody's neck for 8 minutes and the person passed out and died, that would be murder. That's cut and dried. But because it's in the policy manual, and because the police have been trained to do this, they're saying that they don't know if a crime has been committed because they've been trained to do this. Now, protesters, on the other hand, could say, well, it's in our policy manual that if you guys murder us, that we can we can crash and slash and bash and burn. Now think about that. The government says we can do these things to the people. And the prosecutors don't know if a crime has been committed. Now, the reason I'm telling you this, and the reason that this is so important, is because when protesters who are peaceful realize that the prosecution is not happening because a crime may not have been committed in the eyes of the government, I believe that could add gasoline to the fires that are already burning. Fires have already erupted in other locations throughout the protests have erupted in other locations throughout the country already. We predicted that they would. Denver, Columbus, Ohio, Phoenix, Arizona, Los Angeles, Louisville, New York City, and St. Paul, Minnesota, that we know of at this moment. So what does that mean to you? That means to you that you absolutely, positively should consider preparing your pantry for your survival. That's what this means. Just like the coronavirus, we said that it's real and a panic will ensue and the supply chain will break. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm predicting, these are my words, no one else's, these are my words, that I believe that this violence is going to spread across the country. And it's going to make it even more difficult for stores to operate. Businesses are going to close even more. The supply chain will break even more. These are my opinions. And that means that you should get what you need right now, in my opinion. Now, don't waste money. Don't go buying things that you don't need. But in terms of things that you absolutely positively have to have for your survival, I think you should consider meeting with your family and deciding if that's a good use of your money or not. Don't believe anything I say. Don't believe anything anyone else says. Don't believe anything you read. And you may not even be able to believe anything that you hear. And you might be able to believe only 50% of what you see. Make up your own mind. Do not do this just because I said this. Sharon, welcome.
Well, good morning.
Good morning. Sharon, we're going to be talking for the rest of the 2 hours about preparedness and the preparedness pantry. And we've got Arjun in New Jersey on hold. And I'm going to put him on the air for just a second to see if he's going to be talking about what we're going to be talking about, and the preparedness and the pantry. Let's see. How do I do this? I think I do that and this. Arjun in New Jersey, welcome.
Hey, Vincent. How are you doing?
Oh, well. Do you want to talk about preparedness? Because that's our topic for today.
In a way, actually, I needed your advice, like living in a big town or a small town. So if it relates to this, I wanted to talk about this, but I needed your advice on this thing.
Whether you should live in a large town or a small town?
Yes. Actually, the advice that I need is that, the thing that, I have an option to move to a small town. I live in New Jersey right now. And I have an option to move to a small state, like a poor state with a small town. But
when you say, Arjun, when you say a small town, what are we talking about?
We are talking about, Ohio, a small town in Ohio.
Well, not necessarily where, but how big of a small town? 5,000 people?
It will, not more than that. Nothing happens there,
5,000 people is a big town to me. The town that I live outside of is 100 people.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it will be 5,000 people. It will be.
Okay. Yeah. The bottom line is really simple. Electromagnetic radiation is dangerous, and the farther you get away from it, the better, right? The farther that you get away from people, the better, in my opinion. Okay, so
See, the dilemma that I have is that my salary will be cut in 1/3 of my salary will be cut. But currently in New Jersey, everything is it's little bit unaffordable for me, because you see, even the cheapest land that you buy or the cheapest house that you buy, you have to pay taxes at least $500. In the worst neighborhood, if you buy, you will pay $500 of taxes.
Arjun, can you speak up, please? By the way,
yes. Yeah, I can. Yeah. So I was
a little louder, please.
Yeah. I was saying that in New Jersey, the problem is that if you buy the cheapest land or a cheap house in a worse neighborhood, then also you are paying $500 in taxes, every month, and there will be insurance and everything on top of it. Now, if you go to a small town, the thing is that the taxes are very less. In New Jersey has the highest taxes in the United States. So, but if I move to a small town, my salary will be cut by 1/3. 1/3 of my salary will be gone. But there, I think what I'm thinking is that I can buy a land and then I can start learning how to farm, how to do the farming and grow my own food there. That is doable in a small town, even with the cut in the salary. So I actually consider you as my father used to give advices as I hear in your program. So I wanted your advice, your input. If you are advising your son, so how will you advise, me? Should I do this? Should I not do this?
Okay. Let me say it this way. So I used to have a job, and I used to work in the city, and I used to be compensated nicely. Mm-hmm. And everything was great. And taxes were high. Cost of living was high. My parents built a home on the East Coast and in 1960, and it was $33,000. It was on 1 acre of land, $33,000. And the taxes, I think, were about $88 a year. I looked up that home. They sold it many decades ago. And that home is close to $1 million now. And the taxes, I think, are $10,000 or $20,000 a year. It went from $88 to $10,000 or $20,000 a year. So I escaped from that kind of an environment that you're talking about, that you're in. And was I a farmer? No. Was anybody in my family a farmer? No. Did I have anybody to lead the way? No. So my wife and I looked around the country. We kind of liked Missouri. And we moved here. Land was relatively inexpensive. The taxes here on our farm was $180 something a year. And we have ponds and a stream and land and woods. And we're not quite self-sufficient because we don't make machinery. We don't make telephones and computers, but yet we can heat our house and we can live almost, quite self-sufficiently. So if you're thinking, and by the way, did my family move? My relatives? No. They wouldn't do that. They stayed back on the East Coast where they're living in eternal bliss, paying outrageous taxes. They think it's normal. They don't understand, and they won't move because the rest of the family is there. So we left our relatives, moved here, and it was absolutely positively the right thing to do. And as far as our boys are concerned, both of our boys live on this farm, and I hope they'll inherit it. And it was a rough farm, and now it's a nice farm. We'll be right back. So we're talking about the Prepared Pantry with Sharon in Montana, and Sharon is back with us. It was my fault. I hit the wrong button twice. And Arjun is with us in New Jersey, and Arjun was asking the question, Sharon, about moving out. He lives in New Jersey. Taxes are $500 a month. He has seen the light, and he's wondering if he can do the move, get a smaller property in a small town, maybe begin to do some farming and those kinds of things. What are your thoughts, Sharon? I told him that we did that. I am a first-generation farmer, and we saw the light, and we moved out, and he will be leaving some of his family behind, relatives. What are your thoughts, Sharon?
I always think it's better to be in a place where you can be a little more self-sufficient. And I know people harp all the time, but I have to agree it's a good idea to start growing things. But I actually think, too, that you ought to start getting things now, because growing will take all summer, pretty much, minus lettuces and stuff. And, but yeah, if you can get to a place where you can be a little more self-sufficient, a lot of acreage is great, but you can do a lot even on a couple acres. There's books about it, and, or even acre. If you do intensive planting, like in raised beds and companion planting, and if you're in a place where you can follow one crop after other. Up here, you get one crop. We have a short growing period. But anything you can do to set yourself up to be more self-sufficient is a really wise thing. I do think we're heading into some really difficult times. I don't see how you can't. It's kind of for me, it's almost a mental disconnect. My mind says, yes, there's no way I can see that we're not going to have massive inflation. And there's no way that I can personally see, if you just follow any other history in anybody else's country or just the way it's going, that we're not going to have limits on our food, possibly rationing. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. And so I think, yeah, that's true. My mind goes, yes, yes, yes. Your emotional thing goes, this doesn't seem possible. It's kind of surreal. But we have just come through, and actually we're still in it, this coronavirus. Okay. Who would have thought they could have you locked down basically for over a month or a month and a half? And some places still are. You would have never thought that possible, but it is. And even like you start at the top of the hour, they're showing that they can abuse their power. Okay. And there's various things we can try to do, but the one thing we for sure can do is try to make sure we have what we need on hand and not be as dependent on the possible shortages or limits. So yeah, I would say get out of town as fast as you can, personally,
Arjun,
and then try to get yourself set up. Mm-hmm.
Arjun, how does that set with you?
Yes, I think like it makes a lot of sense, and yeah, I mean like currently like like it's very normal here in New Jersey and New York area. Like your commute like one way is like 2 hours. So it's not only for me, it's very common, and it's for almost everyone here who are living in this area. So 4 hours you are just commuting door to door, but like, so I mean like that also takes a lot out of you from your life. It takes a lot out of you. It's not only 4 hours of commute. It's just that like you have to get up in the morning and like do your normal chores, and like just go to work and then just come back. There is nothing else that you can actually do in your life. I mean, it's like in your normal work day. So I mean, like only time you get is just the weekend, and it's and I'm not the only one. Like it's like everyone, almost everyone here, and they just had to go through these things. Plus the
Arjun, let me share a short story with you, and this may help you. My father was a teacher, and he was also a school principal in the public school. And one of his students, this was probably back in the 1950s, was smoking. And he said, you can't smoke in school, but I'm going to let you smoke one cigarette in class. And here's what he did. He said, we'll take that cigarette and we'll get a paper towel, a white paper towel, and we'll put it over the butt end of the cigarette. And I'd like you to take one drag of the cigarette. And so the paper towel covered the end of the cigarette. The smoke went through the paper towel. And then he said, okay, let's look at this paper towel. And there was a spot of tar and nicotine, yellow, brown tar and nicotine on that paper towel. Then he said, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to take another drag of that cigarette and inhale it and then blow it out through a small hole that you make with your lips on the paper towel in a different spot. And then they compared the spots, and he said, and the difference between the first spot and the second spot that hardly showed any smoke residue at all, he said, that's in your lungs. Now, that is what's happening to you on these 2-hour each-way commutes. We're broadcasting about the Prepared Pantry with Sharon, and we're going to tell you what we think you need to do. And Arjun in New Jersey, I want to thank you for your call. Is there any quick answer we can give you, because Jason's going to play a clip for us?
Well, actually, I will call back, and I have like one more question, but I will call back again. And then what is that question? Well, it's a little bit different, and I was wondering like how your father actually shaped you, like for your life, like.
Okay, how did I turn out to be the way I am? By the way, every night I say my prayers in silence, and I thank God for my mother, my father, my family, my aunts and uncles and grandparents for being an influence on me. All of them. And I'll tell you what, Joey called me in Michigan, and he's going to be on with me for 2 hours next Thursday. And we are going to talk about what we remember of growing up. And that's a great time for us to talk about that in detail. What made us the way we are? And so we're going to be doing that next Thursday for 2 hours with Joey in Michigan. So if you want to tune in, you'll hear that, okay?
Absolutely. Sounds good. Thank you very much, Vincent.
Arjun, thank you so much for being with us.
Bye.
Okay. Jason, can you play that? Are you ready to play that clip? I'd like to introduce it if you're ready. Are you ready? Okay. So class, you're going to hear for 1 minute Mike Freeman. He's the county attorney for Hennepin County, in Minnesota. And then the next minute you're going to hear Erica McDonald, the U.S. attorney for the District of Minnesota. And this is in relation to what their thoughts are on criminal charges. Has a crime been committed in the murder of George Floyd by Derek Chauvin, a cop who kneeled on Mr. Floyd's neck for 8 minutes until he passed out and died right in front of the camera. So I played that audio right here this week on USA Prepares. It was gut-wrenching, and people were demanding that the cop, Derek Chauvin, stop, get off his neck and let him breathe. The man said he couldn't breathe. He was calling for his mama. And this is a big black man that was murdered right on video. And so here's what the legal people who would be prosecuting at the state and federal level have to say about this crime. They don't know if it's a crime. You're not going to believe what you hear, and this is why you need to prepare. Jason, please play that clip.
But I could say to you that we just can't rush this. I've been involved in a number of these investigations. The BCA has got their most veteran people, and they are good. Esme, as you know from covering these kind of cases for a long time, each of the facts are different, and each of them have to be addressed differently. I assure you that if the person who had committed the act, and I do not condone or respect the act done by the police officer to Mr. Floyd, that was excessive and that was wrong. The question in my business is it criminal? That's what I have to prove. And if there are cases that you can quickly and easily evaluate, most of the cases, particularly cop use of force cases, are specifically more complex and have to be done right, and we're committed to doing it right.
You know, it's important for, I 100% agree with you. That is the question, right? It is the question that people in my office are asking. It's a question, we were all feeling the pain of watching that. But this is what needs to be understood is, and I know you all understand this, but to the extent I'm speaking to the community, police officers, by the nature of their job, have the authority to use a certain amount of force when they're executing their duties faithfully and honestly and in accordance with their policies. And so a police officer, a law enforcement officer, has, within the latitude of their scope of duty, the ability to use the right amount of force, but not excessive force. Not excessive force as defined by the law. And so that is what we're looking at with respect to any federal criminal violation of civil rights, is that issue of excessive force.
Okay. So if you listen carefully, what you heard was Mike Freeman. He used the term, quote, the person who committed the act. He did not name the police officer, Derek Chauvin, who's the murderer. He didn't name him. But he did name Mr. Floyd, George Floyd. Isn't that interesting? Next thing. He did say that it was excessive and wrong. But then he said, was it criminal? Was it criminal? Do you believe that? And then Erica McDonald, U.S. Attorney for the District of Minnesota, said the police are not allowed to use excessive force. But she did say she agreed with Mike Freeman, the county attorney. So the reason that I played this is when people protest, learn that it is policy to use that kind of force, and the police and the prosecutors don't know if that kind of force that kills people is a crime or not, they're going to go ballistic, in my opinion. Now, I'm not advocating it. I'm not saying go crazy. I'm not saying burn down cities. I am not saying that. But I am saying that the people have just heard from the horse's mouth, both horses, that they don't know if a crime has been committed. And that's what the people who are protesting have been saying. This isn't something that just happened with the victim, one victim, Mr. Floyd, George Floyd. This has been going on for decades. And an interview I heard, one resident of the area said, this has been brewing for a long time. And we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for the police department to be cleaned up, and it hasn't been cleaned up. So the whole upshot of all of that is that you absolutely, positively should consider preparing, because this may not go away very quickly, just as the coronavirus may not go away very quickly. Sharon, any comments?
Well, I think it's a terrible injustice, and I do hope that the police officer is, takes responsibility and is punished properly. I mean, it's just outrageous. But I think it fits into a bigger picture, honestly, that, they're trying to show that the powers that be in government, officials like that can do whatever they want, kind of. And then if they make a great big riots and stuff, then they can come in and have to use more control to control the out-of-control people. And I honestly think they'll try to play it into getting rid of our guns. I mean, that's just kind of what they want to do. You can't really control a country unless you have control of their guns. And they're working their best to do it. They're already showing that they have this authority and people aren't stopping them, which there are ways to stop that. But when you come back to just what we can do personally, which is kind of what I'm big on, I think having a well-prepared or well-stocked pantry is critical. And I think considering what we just went through and still are in some places where we're at, they're lifting a lot of restrictions. We're not back to what we used to be, but we've gone like 40 days here in our area without any known cases of the coronavirus. Okay, so we'll see what happens ahead. But my thinking is, what did you run out of and what did you wish you had? Just start there. People got all panicky about toilet paper, which I had to laugh at because we buy it by the case. There's only two of us, so we have plenty of toilet paper. And we actually didn't have anything that we were out of. But that's because I've lived what I call a prepared pantry, kind of based off of Amy, and I can't say her last name, in Tightwad Gazette, okay? And what they did is they would buy ahead, and we've been doing this for years. Like, I ran by the grocery store. I'm just diverting here a little bit. And if you were to pay, say you want some Kraft dressing, salad dressing, it currently is $2.29, and you can buy it on sale at 99 cents. So you could buy over two of them for the same price you pay at regular price. So the prepared pantry concept is that you pick up things when they're on sale, cases or whatever, and then you save money, and then you can buy more. So we have a very challenging budget, shall we say, and we live really well because both of us are always looking for the best deal. And so I think one should start stocking up as fast as they can, but I also think you should try to do it wisely so you can get the most for your money. So they're putting sales back on, and you could stock up on things like now one of the stores has butter on for $1.99, and they say limit 2, but if you have a spouse, you and your spouse, and if they have children, you can let them do it. I used to make my children do this. They didn't exactly like it. They all went through and bought their 2 of whatever. But instead of paying $3.98 a pound of butter, you can buy 2 for the same price. So that's kind of what I would suggest. I would suggest looking around, what do you eat? If you eat chili, look for sale. You can buy some pretty good deals at the Dollar Tree. Just know your prices, which most people don't. We were talking about this off air. I've been watching a lot of videos because I'm home and I only have my phone, so I don't have a computer, but I'm working in the kitchen or doing whatever project. I'm decluttering and stuff, and I just listen to these programs. And there's these wonderful ladies coming on telling about how they buy all these groceries for the week or whatever, but they're only buying the store prices, regular things. And I'm thinking, I don't wish to donate any more of my money than I have to the store. So one dear lady, I'm not knocking, I'm not trying to be mean, she found a deal where they had 10 pounds of leg quarters for $2.99, and all she bought were 2. And I'm going, what? You know, you're going to probably pay $10 for that. I mean, I really don't know. And why wouldn't you buy as many as you could and put them in your freezer? I don't understand that. That's the way you get ahead, and that's the way you have plenty of food on hand, by buying in this manner. And so we were kind of discussing that. I think you have maybe this summer, although if the riots, that might play into your ability to get food too, depending on how far that plays out. It's just really hard to know. But I don't think we have a massive amount of time to get prepared to offset what's coming. You know, I just think it's coming. And I wish it weren't coming, and I hope I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, you won't be wrong if you have extra toilet paper. It won't be wrong if you have extra anything. You know, food, you'll eat it. So, you there?
Great point, Sharon.
I didn't know if I was off here.
No.
No, I mean, I just think you can't go wrong with it. Okay, like, you know, I have things like plastic wrap you want, or laundry soap. It doesn't hurt to have those things on hand. You're going to use them. So if by chance, which I really don't think I'm wrong, you'll just have food, you know? You'll just have the stuff you need, and you won't have to go to stores often.
Okay, so let's go back to toilet paper.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go through the economics of toilet paper. Now, in the good old days, you know, a few months ago, you could get Scott brand toilet paper by the case for 50 cents a roll. Now, how many rolls are in a case? That'd be 96. 96 rolls at 50 cents a piece is $48. Now, how long would that last? Well, at 1 roll a week for a couple people, this is single ply, 1,000 sheet stuff. You know, something that Mr. Whipple would not approve of. But that would last about 2 years. We'll be right back with Sharon in Montana. Sharon's with us, Sharon in Montana. And we were talking about toilet paper just before the break. And I mentioned that in the good old days, a few months ago, I was able to get it for 50 cents a roll. Scott single-ply toilet paper, case of 96 rolls, $48 for the whole case. And I just found it on Amazon. Yes, you can buy it. It's $1.28 a roll. Now, it was 50 cents a few months ago. Now it's $1.28. So one of the points that Sharon has been making is when it's on sale, and if you need it, and if you have the money for it, you ought to get it. And here's another example. In the good old days, I was able to buy a used Frigidaire freezer. I'm sorry. Actually, it was it's made by Whirlpool, and this particular one said Montgomery Wards. Now, Montgomery Wards has been out of business for about 30 years, 28, 30 years. It was 18 cubic feet, and the asking price was $70, 70. That same freezer today, if you could find one, is about $525 used. So what you have to do is buy things when nobody else wants them. Like you buy your long sleeve shirts in the summer. You buy your short sleeve shirts in the winter. That's what you do. Because people aren't smart enough to figure out that they should buy when the price is low. They don't know how to plan. It's been, it has been bred out of them. It's amazing to me how people don't want to buy things when they're on sale. You buy fuel oil in the summer when no one's heating their house. No one's thinking about how cold it's going to be in a few months. So the price of fuel oil drops in the summer. The price of propane drops in the summer. And you can look at charts. You can go to the internet and look for charts on heating oil prices, diesel prices, gasoline prices. You can look at the historical highs and lows, and you'll find out when the highs and lows are. And it's like the same year after year after year. And all you have to do is check the current price on the internet and decide when you should buy your fuel oil, your propane, and so forth. It's real simple. And I've never talked to Kyle about exactly doing this the way I just mentioned it, but I can pretty much guarantee you that that's the way Kyle and Sharon do it. Is that right, Sharon?
Oh, we always get our fuel when it's lowest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We always do. But that's how we make it on a limited budget. It just, and you know what? People just live in the here and now, and maybe they could do that up until now unless you're just really rich. I think you need to be really aware. I expect prices to go up quite high. I was actually quite shocked yesterday when I went in the grocery store. I rarely buy things at the regular price. I wait until they're on sale, marked down cases. I just rarely buy anything at regular price. So I went down the aisles to just kind of get an idea of how much things cost. Like mayonnaise was $3.89 or something, and I've seen it on sale for 99 cents if you watch for the sale. Okay. I don't pay $3.89. I guess lots of people just go through and throw what they want in and don't think about it. Now, that might have worked for them in the past. I don't think it's particularly wise, but I think you're not going to be able to do that now. I think in the next few months we're going to hit inflation. And I think things that are, maybe $2 now might be $3 or $4. And so unless you have a very large budget, that's going to really hurt you. Plus, you may not be able to get it. If you were to listen to Ice Age Farmers on his website, he has a bunch of videos on YouTube. He talks about how we're not growing as much. We didn't last year. We won't be able to this year because we are in a solar minimum, which is just what the earth does. It goes through cycles. And also because they've shut down the meat plants and are bringing them back somewhat, they're not at full production. So it's just kind of like sort of the perfect storm brewing. And so to me, it's like, okay, now is the time you need to get your stuff. And if you're really wise, you can get some sales. Our stores are coming back out with the flyers now. And so to me, it's like, first off, I would just start with, what did I miss or have to run to the store with this last month and a half? And then I would look around, what do we eat? How do we eat? Now, if you're eating massive fresh stuff, that's great, grow a garden, but you might consider your basics like flour, sugar, even the great old beans and rice because they stretch and they create nutrition. What kind of canned goods do you have on hand? If you have a freezer, which is really great, you can really take advantage of good deals. But if you don't, live with what you're at, make the most of your little refrigerator freezer and, buy canned stuff then or dried stuff. But I feel like now is the time, if you were to take advantage of this time now, then when things get really harder, you won't be so dependent on, I can't get this because you already have it and you can wait until you can get it. So you're making yourself less dependent on the, the food production system that we're in right now, the way that you
Sharon, we're going into a break, and I have a question to ask of you. And if you consider it personal, don't answer it. But maybe when we come back from the other side of the break, consider answering this, please. I'll answer it from my perspective. What is, if you were going to buy canned corn or canned beans or canned peas, what is the most that you would typically consider spending per can? I've got a number in mind that's my upper limit, and I'll share that with you. And if you'd like to share it, I'd love to hear what your number is. And there's a reason why I'm asking this, class, and I'll tell you when we come back. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Sharon in Montana. We're talking about the Prepared Pantry. At the top of the hour news, I just heard the Dow Jones, and I just checked the exact Dow Jones. It's down 224 points. 224 points. That's nothing. That's nothing. Now, all the while, there are protests in Denver, Colorado, Columbus, Ohio, Phoenix, Arizona, Los Angeles, California, Louisville, Kentucky, New York City, New York, St. Paul, Minnesota, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's at least what's on the news. There are probably other locations that have not been reported. Here's a quote, and this is why you should be preparing. in my opinion. This is Summit News. Quote, rioter, we're gonna start coming to the suburbs. End quote. So this article goes on to say a man was interviewed on camera during last night's chaos in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He warned that the rioters are planning to come to the suburbs if they don't get what they want. He says, quote, it's real bogus. They gotta hit it right. Otherwise, this is what's gonna happen. Ain't nothing left here, so when we start coming to the suburbs, when we start coming to the government center, then what y'all gonna do? The mask-wearing African-American asks, end quote. They're coming to the suburbs. That's what he said. So, if you believe that the supply chain is going to be fine, if you think the stores are going to be fine, if you think disruption's not going to happen, then don't do anything. If you think that the supply chain is going to break even more, if you think the riots are going to spread, if you think the violence is going to spread, if you think store owners are going to be afraid to open their stores and not open them, and you think that you can buy, the normal way, then don't do anything. Just keep on doing whatever you're doing. But what I'm hearing from the calls that end up here at the farm, people are now afraid. And it's getting really late. Really late. It's hard to get seeds for your garden. It's hard to grow a garden. If you've had anything better than a complete failure in 3 attempts at gardening, you've got a green thumb. That's what Marjorie Wildcraft says. The price of meat in the good old days was $3 a pound, roughly, for the 90-10 ground beef. 2 days ago, it was $6.99 a pound for the 73-27. That's 27% fat. $7.99 for the 90-10. That's $7.99 for what used to be $3 a pound 3 months ago. The good stuff, the 95.5, 5% fat, 95% lean, $8.99 a pound, if you can get it. So I did some research during the break. What is the price of a can of corn today? Now, I know what it's worth to me, and I know what I've paid for it. I know because I go shopping, or I used to go shopping, in the good old days. And I asked Sharon if she would consider telling us what she would consider, what would she be willing to pay for a can of corn. I'm talking about a 15 1/4 ounce can of corn, a 15 1/4 ounce can of green beans, or a 15 1/4 ounce can of green peas. Sharon, do you want to share that or not?
Oh, well, honestly, I can my own beans and stuff, but if I were to buy it, I wouldn't pay more than 50 cents at this point, and I would probably, because I don't need it. See, the problem is, if you need it, you got to pay what they want. But if you don't need it, but you're going to use it, you can buy it a lot cheaper. So I would probably get it $3 for $1. And I look at the markdowns, and honestly, canned food does not go bad when that little number on the can says it is best sell by or whatever. It just doesn't go bad. And I buy it for sometimes 29 cents a can. Okay, but if I had to buy it now, I wouldn't probably pay more than 50 cents a can.
Okay. Well, you and I are within 2% of each other. My number was 49 cents a can. 49 cents a can.
Well, they had it $2 for $1 on sale a week or two ago. So I figure that's probably what you're going to get it for now on sale. Okay. If you're lucky.
Well, I looked it up. I looked it up on Amazon, and get ready for a shock, class. So Amazon is selling Kirkland Signature brand, which is the house brand for Costco.
Mm-hmm.
12 cans for $21.14. That's $1.76 a can.
That's insane.
It is insane. And that's lower than a lot of other.
I think prices are going to go up, Vincent. I do think they're going up. I've seen it on the store already, and I think people are going to be in for a real big shock. And I might be wrong, but they're not going to go down. Okay? That's how I look at it. At the minimum, they're not going to go down, but I do think they're going to go up. There were a lot of gaps in our grocery store yesterday. And it's after they stocked, and I was shocked because I haven't been in the stores a whole lot. And I actually don't shop certain aisles because I already have the stuff on hand. Okay, but just because I knew I was going to come on, I was just checking. I thought, wow, like their pasta's like majorly cleaned out almost. There's a few. And so to me, if you can get it now, in fact, I think you should get it now, but you should be wise, not just buy a bunch of stuff emotionally. I think you should think logically, like, what do you use? I mean, you definitely should have your baking soda, powder, flour, sugar. I would recommend something like powdered milk. They actually have, I have no idea what the quality is, but our Dollar Tree has that shelf-stable milk, and you could use it in baking. Okay, I don't think you'd want it on your cereal necessarily, but things like that. And also talking about meat, I was going to digress, if you don't mind. On Ice Age Farmer, his latest one, unless he did one today, he has it's called Food. What's in it? Who knows? FDA drops labels as fake food rolls out. And things like hamburger can be filled in with either pea protein or eventually bug protein using crickets and stuff. And you won't know it because they no longer have to tell you that. So people might want to check that out, but you might want to kind of like buyer beware. If you're buying hamburger, you don't know if it's all actual meat from a cow. Okay. It could be spliced with other stuff, which is pretty creepy to me. Not that it would necessarily harm you, but we have the expectation that when you buy a pound of hamburger, it's a pound of ground beef, and they're not doing that. So you might want to be aware of that too. But, people don't tend to, like, I've been to most people's houses and I realize I live an unusual life, but I also live very well on a little bit of money. And you'll go in there and they might have 5 pounds of flour, if they even have that. I think people should get flour. They should get sugar. You should have some type of baking oils like olive oil or coconut oil. Olive oil is probably your best deal. I actually have shortening. I know it's not really good for you, but it works well for certain recipes. And if you want to get shortening, it's cheaper at Walmart, I believe. And you look on the bottom shelf. They have their store brand. And it's considerably cheaper than anywhere else. So I know shortening isn't ideal for you, but it does work for certain recipes I have. So, but people do it frequently, and I'm not trying to be unkind. I know people have just been able to pop in the store, pick up whatever they want for this next couple days, or if they're really together a week. But people don't realize how much food they go through, and they really should get stocked up on the basics because it could cost them a fortune down the road, or it might not even be available. So, like I said, our stores are starting to kick out the sales, so I'd be considering looking at it. Like, I did see tuna at the store was 89 cents a can, but I've always bought 2 for $1 or less. Things like that you might need your meat. I know Costco has canned chicken, which I don't know what they're charging now, but it isn't bad if you want to make like a chicken noodle soup or make something that spreads it. I think people are going to have to start learning how to cook food stretcher type foods, like soups or, things like that stretch. You can buy lower cuts of meat that are cheaper, and you can put them in a crock pot, and if you cook them slow, they get real tender. So you don't have to have massive amount of money to stock up, but it would be smart to be wise. What do you need? And just start thinking, do you have, most people want mayonnaise, you want to have that. You want to make sure you have salt and pepper, sugars, just stuff like that. People don't really think, and you don't have to panic. I mean, people go, oh, it's too much, I can't deal with it. Just look around your house. What do you use? What would you make if you couldn't go buy bread? Do you have flour? Do you have yeast? Do you have a way to make biscuits? Things like that. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I think right now you're not going to get it cheaper, and so you ought to do it now. And you can, like I said, if you buy butter for $1.99 instead of $3.98 or $4.39, which is one brand, and butter is pretty much butter, okay?
It is.
If you can buy that, you could buy 2 now instead of 1 when it's on sale. So you can get stocked up pretty well. And we have some stores around here say limit 1 per person or family or whatever. Well, I consider each person is entitled to get the limit, okay? Because a single person could, so why couldn't, people like, if they say 2 pounds of butter, well, then I go through and get 2 pounds, and I send my husband through for 2 pounds, okay? Or right now, I guess they're limiting how much meat 2 packages. Well, I'm a customer, my husband's a customer. I don't have to buy meat. I've got it on hand. But, if you do, you can kind of take advantage. I'm not talking about hoarding, taking 20 of them and being unfair, but each person is entitled to the portion they've allowed, in my opinion. That's how I look at it. But that's me.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if you have three in the family, you each get in line. You get in a different register line, and absolutely. Sharon, I'd like to read 3 words that I wrote down on this list, and I'd like to since you described, our federal government has decided that we shouldn't know what the ingredients of products are. So not only have they failed us with protecting and serving us, they failed us with letting us know what we're buying. It's a secret. And they're in cahoots with the corporations. Now what proud corporation would not want you to know what's in the products that they make? Only corporations who are dishonest and deceptive would want to conceal that from you. So I'm going to read 3 words. And the 3 words are fresh, ground, and beef. Fresh, ground, beef. Now you may see the sign, class, at the store that says fresh, ground beef. Now I have to ask you, what does that mean? Does that mean fresh ground beef? Or does it mean fresh ground beef? Now, it's the same words. Fresh ground beef or fresh ground beef. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is Sam's Club has a sign. Well, in the good old days, I'm pretty sure they have the same sign. I haven't been there in a long time because of the panic. But in the good old days, they had a sign that said fresh ground beef. Now, right next to these packages, these trays with the clear plastic wrap over them, there were tubes of ground beef. And I said to the guy, what's the difference between this $2.62 tube of beef and this tray of beef? What's the difference? And he said, well, we grind it again. And I said, so they're the same and you charge more, $3.08 for the display package with the clear plastic wrapping versus the tube. He said, yeah, it comes and we regrind it. Sharon's with us, and I asked the question about, well, fresh ground beef. And so what Sam's Club does, literally, is they buy the beef in cases, and it comes in tubes, plastic tubes. And if you want it in the tray with the nice pink color, the clear plastic wrapping, the black tray, plastic tray on the bottom, they will take the stuff out, the beef out of the tube, the 90-10, and regrind it another time. And that's called fresh ground beef. It's written fresh ground beef, but it's fresh ground beef. So they just ground it fresh. Now, to me, that's deceptive. But they'll tell you if you ask them. But there's lots of things like that. So I want you to be careful that if you think that they've got a butcher shop back there and, they're trimming the carcass and they're doing all of that, fresh. No, it comes in cases from a major beef packer. As it does in most supermarkets. Now, one of the things that Sharon mentioned was extending food. And I have here a wrapper of a food product that I think is a great way to go. Relatively inexpensive, but not big in quantity. It's Manischewitz split pea soup mix. And it's dried, and it comes in a plastic, like a cellophane type plastic package, long and narrow, and it's 6 ounces. And it's spelled Manischewitz, Manischewitz. And it's packaged in New Jersey. And it's a dried split pea soup, green and yellow. And the split peas are not halves of the split pea as they normally are. They're quarters. They're smaller pieces. And all you do is you boil some water, cold water, and you throw it in a pot. And once it boils, you drop in the split pea soup mix. But first, when you make this, you have to pour out the split peas on, let's say, a white plate. And you look for stones and things like that. Because if you chew down on this, you can break a tooth. So you have to look for foreign objects. And they say, Let's see. Sort and rinse beans prior to cooking. And this is really tiny print, okay? So because it may contain foreign matter. And I understand that. So, but unless you read the package, you won't know that foreign matter can be in there. So what I do is I will first take that pot after I sort through the debris and get that all out of the split peas that I want to put in the pot. I'll then rinse and rinse and rinse at least 8 times to get any other foreign matter that may cling to the split peas. Then I'll start cooking it. And then I will add twice the quantity of that 6-ounce package of just plain old regular split peas. So I can extend this relatively, for the size, $1, maybe $1.50 or $2 for this package of soup. I can make it 3 times the amount for just $1 or so more by adding regular split peas. Now, of course, all the split peas that you use, the dried ones, you have to sort them. You have to sort out the debris. So make sure you look very carefully and rinse, 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 and rinse dried peas and beans. Sharon, any comments on that?
Oh, yeah, you should do that with any of your dried beans you get. You can actually buy them like at the Dollar Tree, probably Walmart. I don't shop Walmart hardly ever. We have a Walmart superstore and I don't like going in there. But I had to go in the other day. That's why I noticed a shortening. I thought, well, that's a good deal. If you have an Aldi's, that's a good place too. I was going to address the idea that people, I just don't have room. And, we had 5 children in a small home and we homeschooled and I had a lot of craft stuff and I canned. And if you open your mind to think how much you can pack into a small area and not feel totally squished, the obvious is under your bed. Just raise it up a little bit. You can put cases of whatever under your bed. I'll have to finish after the music.
Yeah, and I've got an anecdotal story about under the bed when you come back. Class, we'll be right back with Sharon in Montana. We're talking about the Prepared Pantry, a way of thinking about food and survival, the way Sharon does, Kyle and I do. We'll be right back. Just a quick comment about that Manischewitz soup. The way I make it is I will put about 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper, and the red pepper seeds in the soup, and it is absolutely delicious. Even when extended with extra split peas that did not come in the package. Sharon, you mentioned storage is a problem. I don't have any place to store it. And then you mentioned under the bed. Would you please continue that?
Well, you can put cases of stuff like, I know most people aren't going to stock up major, so just get more of what you regularly lose. That's why I say don't, there's this thing called driving down the road in a Deersland Road and they see your headlight, they just freeze and they do nothing, okay? And you'll hit them or go around them or whatever. And sometimes when people hear stuff like this, they just get that deer in the headlight feeling like it's too much. So just go buy extra of whatever you get and get a good deal. When you said spices, I'm going to go back to the storage. When you said spices, I would suggest you get some. You need them if you start cooking from scratch. So many people buy prepared foods already made and they just heat it up. So like you said, the red peppers, chili powder, all that kind of stuff. And actually the Dollar Tree doesn't have such a bad idea with that. You can buy little containers for just $1 and at least it gets you started. Okay. As far as storage, you can put cases under the bed. I used to make a map and put it on the inside of my cupboard door in the kitchen of where I had canned goods, okay, that I made. And so we had a king size bed and you could put 8 banana boxes under each half. And I just made a little map of what was where. So when they needed more peaches, I'd know what's the second one in and I could pull them out. And banana boxes are really sturdy. But you can also just buy things in cases or boxes and just stack them up and put them in the back of your closet, and then you have it. Or I would recommend putting anything like oatmeal or flour, something in a bucket or something that's varmint proof. Okay, so you can get 5-gallon buckets, and they even have like 2-gallon and 3-gallon and 4-gallon at the bakeries in a lot of grocery stores. You just go back and ask them, say, if they happen to have any. And sometimes you pay $1 and sometimes they just give them to you free, and they normally rinse them out, which is nice, but I clean them out really well. And that keeps out most rodents. But you can stack them in the back of your closet, or depending where you live, some of that stuff can be stored in a shed, honestly. I mean, you know, it just kind of depends on where you're at in the country. But having it will take off a lot of stress. You'll probably find food somewhere, but do you want to be standing in line or wanting meat and you can only get one package a week or something? This has happened in the past depression. And if you look at the economics where we're at, we are in a depression, but they won't tell you that. Okay. Everything's happening just like it did in the last one. And so, you know, what kind of stress do you want to deal with? I don't foresee people starving to death in our country right away, but I do foresee having a lot of stress trying to find what you want. When it wouldn't be that hard to pick it up now. Have extra baking soda, have extra baking powder, make sure you get some yeast. You know, have oil to cook with, like olive oil or coconut oil. I don't like to use just vegetable oil because there's a lot of soy in it, but that would be better probably than nothing. You know, vanilla, your basic spices. There's a lot of ways to do things. A lot of it is just, I've said this before because this is my bent, but instead of I can't, say, how could I? And it really opens up your mind to all kinds of things. Well, I could always stack something under here or around here. Or, you know, if I clean this out and put my extra clothing in the shed, then I have room in my closet or in my garage or whatever you have, you know. So a lot of it's just a mindset. Yeah, I want to make sure I have on hand what I'm going to want and then maybe have stuff to stretch food, because I do think getting regular meat is going to be more of a challenge down the road. And also with the crops, like Washington, the guy's saying they can only use half the apples, so they're going to be less than half the apples on the market in that area. And Washington's one of our biggest apples. Things like that. I mean, it's just kind of coming down. And part of it is the government restrictions of putting on these people, because we all have to be, quote, safe when the world's never been safe. But also because of we are in what's called a solar minimum. And so what crops used to grow better 3 or 4 years ago are not going to grow as well, and the amount of food we're going to get from them is going to be less. So whenever you have a shortage, the prices go up. Plus, like I said, I mean, you cannot print all this imaginary money and put it into circulation without devaluing the dollar, which then makes your prices go up. I mean, that's just what's always happened in any country. So my thinking is, you know, get the things you can. It doesn't hurt to have canned goods because they store forever, you know, just have it on hand. But a lot of your basic pastas and beans and rice, or don't buy stuff you're not going to eat, though. You know, I mean, if you hate it, don't buy it. Buy stuff that you would be willing to eat, and then stock up. Also, some basic things you might want to consider is like laundry soap and just soap. And I know people have their favorite soaps, and a lot of people like Tide soap, and it's just so wonderful. But I tell you what, unless you're getting super grungy, they have soap at the Dollar Tree. It says 32 washes, but you probably get 20. And it's only $1, and it works fine for just everyday wear. It really does. I use it all the time. And then if something's really dirty, I use good old Dawn soap for a spot cleaner. Okay, you just put it on there and wash it, and all my clothes come clean. And we work out in the garden and do stuff. Okay, so you can always stock up on stuff like that. And that, unless you're freezing weather, you can stick that out in a garage shop or whatever. It's not going to go bad. So I would just think anything you buy now that you buy ahead, I can't see how it's not going to save you money down the road, and I can't see how it's not going to reduce your stress down the road. Because when your money won't go very far and you already have it on hand, then you have time to look for the best deals later on, and you're not so dependent on, oh, I've got to have tomato sauce today, so I'm going to pay 69 cents a can or whatever you're paying, you know, because you bought it at $4 for $1, you know. And so it's just a mindset, and a lot of it, people get all stressed out, or some people do, about this. To me, I look at it like fishing. I don't like to fish myself, but you know, when people go out there and they're putting out, they're looking around, and then they catch the big one. Well, to me, I go through the stores, I look at the ads, and like, oh man, that's a good deal. And that's when I go stock up on it. And because I'm already stocked up with a lot of stuff, most of it goes into stocking up again on sale. I don't use almost very little of my money is for things that aren't on sale that I need now. You know, like you have to, well, we have eggs actually. We have chickens, but you know, if you didn't have, I had to buy milk. Okay. So, I just have to go buy milk, and milk doesn't go on sale a whole lot, so I just buy milk. But most everything else, I don't buy it unless it's on sale or in the markdown. That's just the way I do it. Or I buy in bulk. I actually order through a co-op, and I can buy, 10, 20 pounds of whatever, and I just stick it in buckets and sort. And then, yes, I've got enough for the next year or two, but I pay like 1/4 of what you pay if you buy it in the store by doing it that way. So, but my challenge is that people start stocking up on what they normally eat, and I would be a little aware of what you're buying in your meat, like you were talking about. I think that it's sad but kind of funny, and then to me it's that they would regrind it to say it's freshly ground, but then it's called buyer beware. Just be aware. You now know that. And like right now, I've now learned that they can add things like pea protein into your hamburger, and they don't have to tell you about it. And they'll be able later on to add insect protein and other things. So just beware, okay, this is the reality we are now in. So to me, the sooner you adjust to the new reality we're in, the better you can, in a sense, play the game and the best you can make out of it, We now know things are going up, so if you see a good deal, grab it, just do it.
Sharon, at our expo, we had 7 expos, and for 3 of them, I called Doomsday Preppers, and I talked on the phone with the casting director. She's a 26-year-old gal. She's a USA Prepares instructor. I haven't heard from her in a while. But, she had been exposed to what we do, how we do it, how we buy. She was exposed to all the seminars. She could do whatever she wanted. And I introduced her to some of our instructors who have appeared on Doomsday Preppers on television. Well, that being said, there was a massive storm in New York City. And after this, no power, traffic lights were down, the city was dark, no water, all those things. And so after it was over, I called her up and said, "How'd you do?" She said, "It was terrible. There's no water, no food. And if you wanted to buy a bottle of water or a case of bottled water, it was 3 to 4 times the price it was before the storm." I said, "You didn't have room? Or why didn't you have the water already?" She said she didn't have room. I said, "You didn't have room?" She said, "Yeah, I live in a 4th floor walk-up apartment." I said, "Oh, do you have room now?" She said, "Yeah, under the bed."
Yeah.
She said it was really creepy.
Boxes in a corner. You can actually, if you think vertical going up, you can stack a lot of things. Okay, you really can. And, like if it's in your bedroom, is it really going to stress you that much if you put some boxes in the corner of your bedroom? I mean, really, maybe not your living room, but, your bedroom.
No, that's how I decorate our house. Well,
I mean, I think if you can put it in your closet, that's better. But, I would have thought, okay, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. I think that if you'd look back here at what you just went through, did you like not having what you needed? Like my husband and I, we are fortunate, like I said, because the way I bought, we didn't even have to go to the store. I mean, there was nothing we actually had to do, okay? My husband had to go in town a couple times, so he wore the mask and everything, got us a little bit of fresh stuff. We're doing these smoothies, okay? But we could have done without that. I could have used some frozen stuff instead, It is a really nice feeling knowing that you're not completely dependent upon the supply system, okay? And that I have time, like I don't have to run out and buy mayonnaise. I have some on hand. So if I see it on sale for a good deal, I'll grab another couple jars or something, It's just a nice feeling knowing that you're not so dependent on, I've got to figure out how I'm going to buy groceries this week at these ridiculously high prices.
Yeah.
And so to me, being aware of what's coming, like around here, sometimes they say a blizzard's coming, okay? And you would be surprised how fast the stores get emptied out. It's kind of almost humorous. Sad, but humorous. But to me, this is like you're seeing this big storm coming, okay? Do you want to be the person panicking in the store trying to grab enough food for the next few days? Or do you want to have stuff on hand and say, I don't even have to go to the store? There's like this really neat security knowing that you have stuff on hand. And yes, it might be a little inconvenient. You might not have your full closet, or you might have to go under the bed to get something, or you might have to get something out of the cupboard, but in a closet or someplace. But when you need it, it's going to be a huge relief to you knowing that you didn't have to run to the store to try to find some meat for tomorrow.
Yeah,
you put
absolutely.
it in your freezer, or you have canned meat. It's a huge relief.
You talked about flour. And
Yeah.
we have a bread making machine here, and you could have bought them in the good old days at Goodwill for $10 or $15 a piece. I'm talking about a Sunbeam, a Toastmaster, Breadman brands, Oster, and you could have bought them for $10 or $15, maybe $20. I just checked on eBay during, when we were discussing the Sharon. The price now is going to be about $80 for one of those used ones. Now, Mrs. Finelli has two. She has a Toastmaster, which I really like, and she has a Zozaruchi, Zojirushi, and that thing is the cat's meow of bread machines, and you can buy one for $87 right now used on eBay, and it really is the cat's meow. It does a 2-pound loaf. We'll be right back with Sharon. Quick comment, class. When you plant your tomatoes, you may want to sprinkle in about a teaspoon of Epsom salts. Tomatoes love it. Now, don't let it come in direct contact with the roots when you plant, if you're planting. If you've already planted, you can mix it in the soil around the plant, and you will see much more vigor. You can buy a bread machine on the internet and have it shipped in. You'll need some flour and some yeast and some lemon. So think about that. You'll need some sugar, and you won't have to go to the store to buy bread. Sharon makes her own. We make our own. I can't imagine going to the store to buy bread. I think it's nuts. Robert in Kansas, welcome. You're on with Sharon.
Good morning, Vincent. Good morning, Sharon. One thing that I'm doing is I'm trying my hand at microgreens, and they're on these trays, these trays that they're pretty flat. And one thing about it is I can take them outside when I want to. They can get natural sun or rainwater, whatever I want, and then at night or whenever, right, I can bring them inside. So it's a very secure, seems to be working out. It's a very secure food source too. If you're in an urban, suburban environment, anything outdoors, if you have an outdoor food source, any sort of, situation were to occur with a food shortage, it could be very, you could end up missing your garden very soon, in a real situation. So, something to think about.
Before you leave that topic, Robert, class, if you are going to grow sprouts, and I believe that's what Robert's talking about, please, before you do it, watch some videos, because there's certain things that you must do to make sure that you don't infect yourself with bacteria. Okay? There's a lot of rinsing that goes on, and there's some preparation that goes on. So if you're talking about mung beans, or if you're talking about sprouting, chia, or whatever it may be, make sure you learn how to do it. Now, it can be done very safely, and it's a great thing to do. We do it. So I recommend that you learn how to do it. The rinsing is really, really critical. The type of water that you use is critical. Where you put them is critical. And how you use them is critical. So it's food, and you can hurt yourself. So make sure you learn how to do it. There are plenty of YouTube videos. Do not rely on just one of them. Watch several of them to get the consensus and make up your own mind as to what you should do. Robert?
Absolutely, Vince. You're right on that. And I'm just learning, from Sharon, from you, from all the great instructors. So yeah, I'm doing the same thing, watching videos, and it's a new thing for me too. Vincent, I want to tell you, we've met before. I think we have a problem. You'll notice that they keep saying that the white cop killed the black guy. And you may have noticed other, similar, sort of narratives occurring. I do think our problem will be, Vincent, that the police, ultimately, who do they work for, right? They protect and serve, but do they serve the banks and protect the corporations, right? I mean, that's who they are. So they're not going to be allowed to be demonized. They will protect them, and they will turn it into that all white guys, which, I happen to know what you look like. Maybe you could tell them you're Italian, but I think you're going to pass for white, Vincent, and they're going to say that you're you're the one who's evil. Your rights need to be stripped. Things like that. So that's what I do think that's what we're going to face. It's not necessarily that the police are bad, but that white people are bad, especially white men, especially white straight men who are self-sufficient. If you know what I mean, it just, you know, that's what they're going to make it into, Vince. And, you know, your First Amendment, Second Amendment, your property, due process, they're going to make it, well, you're an evil white guy, so you don't get a trial. But the police, you know, they could go around with a license to do what they want for who they work for, basically. So they might allow stuff to happen. And in other cases, you know, they could be provocating this with you know, who knows what's going on, Vince? It could be an accident,
Robert.
It could be on purpose.
Yeah.
You know, who knows what's going on? Okay.
I've got a question for you. I mentioned that the attorneys for the prosecution, the state and or the county and the federal government, don't know if a crime has been committed. Did you see the video? The 8-minute video?
Yeah,
did you see that?
I've seen parts of the video, I would say, yes.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you think it was murder?
I think the guy knelt. If things are real the way we saw them, and the guys, you know, he knelt on him until he was dead, Vincent. Yeah, I mean, that's what happened.
Okay, we only have a few seconds left, Robert. So the next question I have for you, do you think that when people realize, based on the audio I played of the attorneys who would be prosecuting the police who don't know if a crime has been committed, do you think that when people realize that the police can do this and we don't even know if there's a crime that's been committed, do you think that the violence will escalate, the supply chain will be broken even further, and it'll be tougher for people to get what they need? Do you think that's the case, yes or no? Real quickly.
I don't know, Vincent. I hope not.
We're out of time. Robert, thank you. Sharon, thanks so much for being with us.